allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before the Madam Clerk tells me, I'll turn on my microphone here. So we'll move on now to item 1.3, and before I open that up for public comment, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I'm sure you'd rather be somewhere else with loved ones or family, but we appreciate you being here with us. How's that? So moving back to 1.3, public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to address the board on any item that's not on the posted agenda? Seeing none, we'll move right into item 2, and that's going to be the trustee vacancy for seat or area 7. And I'm going to turn it over to the other trustees since it's listed on the agenda for recommended action that the Board of Trustees decide on how to proceed for filling the vacancy in trustee area 7.
I have a suggestion of how to proceed. We have 2 pieces of information now that we have to help us make our good decision. One is the applications of the written statements of the people who applied. And now we have their interviews that we heard on Monday. So we have 2 pieces of information with which to make an informed decision, which I appreciate. And I was wondering if we could take a few moments to look at their application statements, compare them with our notes that we took on Monday, and then possibly rate them on that rating sheet that we didn't do Monday, and just see how that turns out. See who kind of rises to the top or not, just as a point of reference to discuss. What do y'all think about that? Or not?
I guess if you remember how the voting went, there were 3 people who were totally inflexible, would not compromise. And there were 3 people who would compromise in that they would support more than one candidate. I think it's important to know, I personally feel this group needs to compromise. And if the group that was unwilling to on Monday, if they'd be willing to compromise on their number 2 choice, I'd be willing to support them in that so that we could get 4 votes. But I don't think I looked over the information carefully, I took good notes, and I have a clear rating in my mind. I don't know, I don't have a yes or no on whether sharing the rating would be helpful or not. I think more important, can we find a compromise?
I just thought the rating sheet would kind of give us, maybe, and we've had time to think about it and had time to ingest what we heard on Monday. Sometimes what you hear is different than what you read. And I think the rating sheet might kind of give us a different look on things, just as a point of reference for discussion. I mean, I thought we were here today to discuss and talk about the candidates. We didn't do that on Monday. So talk about why we like somebody or why we think it's important that one person get the nod over another.
We could try it.
I mean, anything is worth a try. Any option that a trustee puts forward, I think I'm duty bound to respect that process. My only concern is to kind of add on to what Ann said. I think that there was a demonstrated effort on the part of the board to support more than one candidate and to show flexibility in that regard. So I would hope that using that as a lens or a filter, that as we do this, we seek to be a little more flexible and compromising in that regard. So, but you know, if we want to take a few moments, if everybody wants to take a few moments and go over their notes, just keep in mind, anything that we say, this is an open process. This is a public process. So any comments, if you have points of clarification or whatever, those have to be all made in public. Okay?
Sure. Did everybody save that rating sheet?
Yep.
You need one? Abe, I have an extra. It's yellow. Yeah. Graciela, if I could impose upon you to collect these and collate them.
Well, you didn't read the bottom. You give 4 to first place, 3 to second place, 2 to... Well, read the instructions at the bottom. Yeah. First place gets a 4, which doesn't make sense, but that's what the rules say. I know, but first place could have been 1, and then you go to the lowest score, whatever.
You didn't ask me if I.
Oh, did you
just made a couple of extras because you know. When you hand out something. Is there some way we could see, like, did you put it on a thing? Or just tell us, you could just tell us, like, first, second, third, fourth, or how does the rest of you feel?
Clerk's choice. No pressure.
Could you make that bigger?
Even with my glasses on, I'm having a hard time.
Interesting. So now, seeing this, could we discuss, especially the folks that put Antonio as their first choice, why that would be your first choice? Could we start like that? Or,
Well, you know, our meeting on Monday was really devastating to the candidates. It was embarrassing to me. It was demeaning. It was not done respectfully. And I don't want to say anything negative about any of these applicants.
okay, but what, could we hear why you put somebody number one? That would be a positive. I'd like to hear some positive responses of why someone would think Antonio would be a good board member. And this is not etched in stone. This is just, to me, something to go by, just to start.
Well, as a place to start, it looks like we have two candidates that are above the bottom two, unfortunately. So I would go back to what I said before. If one of you could compromise, pick one of the top two, and I'll vote with you.
Let's have a little more discussion. Could we talk about the candidates? We don't have to talk about them negatively, but could we talk positively, like why? I would like to speak in defense of Homero Mejia. He's an MJC graduate. He brings what I would consider like a future to the board. Tom would be, he'd be an okay. We could do worse than Tom, but we could do better. Tom would, to me, represent status quo. Someone like Homero is a future board member, and everybody said that they would re-up in November. They'd run again. And so I would like to have somebody on the board who is going to run again. No guarantees that they would win, but at least they would have experience of 8 or 9 months of being on the board. Whereas if Tom Hallinan gets in there, he's gone and we start all over again.
Yeah, but then the public would be making the choice.
Sure, like I say, there's no guarantees that whoever we appoint now is going to get it in November, but at least they would have a leg up on whoever else ran. And if they do a good job and they're good at it, it would be a campaign perk.
Well, in terms of raw qualifications, Tom's way ahead of all of them. He's got 20 years experience. He's got a law degree. He's a known quantity. We know what to expect when we get him. So I think the downside is that he's going to be here for a few months and he's gone. So we have to consider that. But just in terms of qualifications, he's way ahead of all of them, in my view.
Well, it depends on what you consider qualifications. I mean, someone who's been in the system as a student and has represented the students. And yeah, Tom he graduated from MJC, but years ago. This other fellow is very recent graduate, very enthusiastic. I just thought he would bring a fresh insight, a kind of a future look of a board member, and someone that students in the community could relate to, because we're all here for the students, I hope. And I just really would speak to him as a candidate.
Well, to me, next would be Homero, because he's been active in many enterprises, volunteer, he's worked hard, got himself through college, MJC and Stan State. He presents himself well, appears to be bright. I could live with him.
Well, what I'm hearing is that we really haven't changed much from when we were here on Monday. That's what I'm taking from the comments. I think we have to keep in mind that we have a timeline. We have 130 days from the time that our previous trustee, John Rodriguez, resigned his position. Once he noticed, we have 130 days. If not, the law is clear. We must hold a special election. And it would just be this special election being run by the County Office of Elections. That gets very expensive. We already know by statute, whoever is in this position has to run again in November. We already know that. So we already have an expense there that we normally would not have if the seat was still occupied by John. With respect, and this is just me since we wanted some input here, part of respecting the voters' wishes is you not give a leg up to anyone. And if you put somebody in a position when they can put incumbent, on there, that automatically gives them a leg up. And so we need to be mindful of that. I'm not saying that precludes us from any action, but we need to be mindful and respecting a rather open process with respect to elections.
Comment doesn't guarantee.
It doesn't. You're right. It does not. But it usually does. So, well, yes.
So that's a flawed statement.
I said I'm giving my opinion, and your opinion, correct.
Good afternoon, Ms. Molina. I just, point of clarification, Mr. Chair. So you stated that the person who gets appointed has to run in November. No. That's what you stated. Is
No, he
the
didn't.
position has to go on the ballot.
I'm going by what the individuals said when they were here on Monday.
Okay, but the position itself is going to be coming up for election in November, correct? Yeah. And then anybody who's appointed has to put appointed incumbent, not just incumbent. So just a quick point of clarification on the elections ballot, okay? Just wanted to clarify.
So the public would know that they were appointed and that they didn't win in an election?
Correct.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Well, one of the reasons that I supported Tony Aguilar is that he has 12 years of school board experience. If you look at his letters of recommendation, he's got the county superintendent of schools. He's got someone from the Turlock High School. He's got education requirements, and he has education experience. He also did go to MJC. He also has a son at MJC. He would provide us, I think, a very sincere opportunity to understand, the students, as you want to say. Of course, if you really want to go with someone closest to the students, then we should get Lauren, because she's closest in age to most of our students. But Tony, I think he was very nervous, but I think the things that he said well. I don't see him as having any difficulty getting involved. He has experience, and I think he was sort of nervous about the event, but I think he has a great deal of strength. His answers were very good. His recommendations are very good. But what you want in a trustee might be different than what I want. So maybe Tom is the best choice to solve, to compromise, to get 4 votes, because I don't see how going out again is going to be of value. And I definitely do not want to have to pay for a by-mail election. It will cost us over $100,000, just throwing it away because we can't compromise.
I agree pretty much with what Ann said just now, and it is awkward to talk, because I really appreciate that everyone came forward and put in their applications. It takes a tremendous amount of work, and to sit there in the hot seat is not fun either. So I appreciate what everyone did, and as Ann said, we have different things that we're looking for. Sometimes you just connect with someone, you're just impressed. I came here not knowing who I was going to vote for on Monday, and I ended up voting for 3 of the 4 candidates. But I listened very carefully, and I could still support the same 3 I supported last time, I'm sure. So anyway.
Abe, what's on your mind?
I can see that that's kind of flawed. The same people that gave Aguilar a 4 also gave 1s, looks like. And even mine, and I'll admit it, I gave a 4 and gave 1. So I think that's not really, I think it's kind of flawed myself.
Abe, what do you propose as a compromise? How can we compromise and get 4 votes for one of these 4 candidates?
Well, I expressed myself Monday.
Yes, you did.
I favored Romero because I thought he was young and aggressive, and he represents the underrepresented people in our on our college, which is over 40% Hispanic,
So does
over 50% disadvantaged students. So to me, that's a plus.
I think the same could be said of Antonio. I said I think the same can be said of Antonio.
Maybe. Either way, you have an opinion either way. I think Homero worked more with students.
Don, what would,
And you can only do so much yourself, you know.
right,
I come from the high school board, and I was there for 13 years. It's a totally different ballgame. I interacted with students every day. And so, but if it's a different type of interaction, encouraging them to stay in high school. And my position at that time was parents would contact me on a daily basis. We don't have that here. And so it's just not the same being a board member at the K-12 level as it is in this particular situation with the Yosemite Community College District. That's just my opinion. Take it for what it's worth.
so Don, what would you like to do?
Well, obviously, we need to compromise. We can't afford a $80,000 election. So saying, having said that, I was on the county board for 8 years. I was president for 6 years. And we had some contact with school districts in the county. And I also had a niece that worked at Keys when he was there. And I'm not bragging about that situation at all, without being specific.
So as I said on Monday, following rules of order, the chair doesn't make a motion. So if in the spirit of compromising, which is what we talked about, what would someone like to do?
Well, okay, I'll nominate Homero. Homero Mejia.
How is that in the spirit of compromising?
Well, we have to have a nomination, and the chair asked for a procedure, and we all sat here and didn't do anything, so I'm just nominating my first choice, and if he goes down, then we'll go forward.
Okay.
Okay, so we've had a motion for Homero Mejia by trustee Lynn Martin. Is there a second? Second by trustee Rojas. So we'll turn it over to Madam Clerk for a roll call vote.
Trustee Martin?
Yes?
Trustee Viss?
Yes.
Trustee Rojas? Yes. Trustee DeMartini?
No.
Chair Garrett?
No?
Trustee Beggs?
No.
But I would like to say I'll vote for any of the other three if someone will offer a compromise.
I didn't hear that.
I will vote for the other three candidates if someone who refused to compromise on Monday will offer a compromise. So, Don, I mean,
Well, it says a special election in June, 89,500. August of 2018, 161,000. So we're talking about a June election of 89,000. We can't come up with a compromise.
This is like deja vu. So in the spirit of deja vu,
Well, I'm leaning towards adjourning this meeting and moving forward with taking additional applications, which is what we ended the last time with.
we'd have to vote on that too.
We would.
I say we try.
Meeting's still open, so let's see what we can do.
Okay, I'll nominate the person who got the most votes. We'll just see. I'll nominate Antonio Aguilar.
I'm having trouble making out what's being said. So what did you move forward?
The Antonio.
second. Sorry.
Okay, so there's been a motion by trustee Beggs for Antonio Aguilar. It's been seconded by trustee DeMartini. And now we'll turn it back over to the Madam Clerk for a roll call vote.
You'd kindly give me one moment. Trustee Martin?
No.
Trustee Viss?
No.
Trustee Rojas? No. Trustee DeMartini?
Yes.
Chair Garrett?
Yes?
Trustee Beggs, pardon me?
Yes.
Okay. We're really not embracing the idea of compromise here, my fellow learned colleagues. So unless someone objects, I'm going to, okay,
I'm going to make one more try.
Well,
okay?
all right, I would like to nominate Tom, and if you don't like it, get over it, okay? Because I will tell everyone that we have people, you know, we listen to people say they wanted to be on a team. This is not a team if you can't compromise slightly. He's not the first choice of anyone. If you don't like Tom, I'm urging you to compromise.
Disliking or liking someone, I resent that.
Liking someone,
He's a good friend.
then vote for him, Abe. So I move that.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by trustee DeMartini, moving forward Tom Hallinan, seconded by trustee Beggs. And I will turn it over to Madam Clerk for a roll call vote.
Trustee Martin,
Well, I still think Tom represents status quo, and I think we're missing out on a youth, future board member, but I don't want to cost the district $100,000, so I will vote yes.
Trustee Viss,
Yes.
Trustee Rojas. Trustee DeMartini,
Yes.
Chair Garrett,
Yes?
Trustee Beggs.
Yes.
5-1, motion carries.
Okay.
Hallelujah.
So thank you all, and thank you again for all those that applied. We do appreciate it for you and your willingness to participate in the process. So we'll move on now to the next item, which is the provisional appointment of trustee vacancy, trustee area 7. Recommended action is that the Board of Trustees provisionally appoint a candidate to the YCCD Board of Trustees in accordance. So I turn it back over to the clerk. Do we need to make a motion now that we're appointing Tom, or that was the previous vote?
Those were the previous votes.
Okay. So with that, this meeting is adjourned for 20 minutes until we will be back to open again before we go into closed session following that brief opening.